2. Can you do a karakia? Right, welcome everybody. We'll make a start to today's meeting. We'd like to open the meeting with Councillor O'Brien in a karakia, please. Kia ora, thanks. Right, live streaming. Council and Standing Committee meetings are live streamed on the Council's website and YouTube channel. Public gallery attendees' presence implies your consent is being given to broadcast. Further information about live streaming protocols can be found on the Council's website. Health and safety. In case of an emergency, follow the building wardens to the nearest exit. The meeting point is across the road at Peace Park, and bathroom facilities are located opposite the Council's foyer entrance. Now, we have got Councillors Dennis, Rangioho and Boynton online. Yes, they're all streamed in there, so we've got them online. We've got an apology from Councillor Imick and an apology for lateness from Councillor Puller, and Councillor Isles has to duck out for an appointment about 9:45. Can I was just going to say, can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Isles. Seconder, Councillor James. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. Does anybody have any acknowledgements or tributes for today's meeting? No, I'll just say what an absolute pleasure it was to have our Olympians here in the Council chamber, and I think that the event at Rex Bulpith Park went off really well, so thanks to all the staff and everyone involved. Yes, please, Councillor Isles.
There's one more I may add. I'd just like to acknowledge the recent passing of Taniatua Community Board Chair Diane Yelton, and again acknowledge the support and the attendance that followed for Diane's funeral on Monday. And I know after, 30-odd years of commitment to the Taniatua Community Board, and as chair of Taniatua Community Board since 2013, the input and the contribution she gave not only to council but the wider community is much appreciated and acknowledged.
Thank you very much for that. She will be a huge loss to the community. Right, next we have any conflicts of interest. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest on today's agenda?
No.
No, thank you. We don't have any public participation today, so we've got some confirmation of minutes for the meeting the 29th of August 2024 to be confirmed as a true and correct record. Before we do that, does anybody have any comments or questions on those minutes? No? Would I have a mover and a seconder out there, please?
Happy to move.
Councillor Isles moves. Councillor James seconds. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Right, we can move on to our very first report, health and safety. And we have got Michelle. Welcome to the table, Michelle. We'll just take questions over the whole report once Michelle's given us a little bit of a summary. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Councillors. Morena Koto. So the health and safety report that you've received is for the quarter July to September. You'll note that this report is fairly brief. The majority of the work in this space this quarter has been focused around the outcomes of the audit and putting in place our improvement project. So the exec have spent considerable time working through the development of a new strategy. That final draft is being circulated to them this week, and we have an item on the briefing agenda in February to come and present that to you and talk through it in more detail. That document will be our overarching document that guides our program of work for the next few years. The other thing that I would like to just flag with you is that as part of that review, there will be significant changes coming to the way we report on health and safety through to this committee. This is the last time you will see the report in this format, and there will be changes coming through early next year. Those changes will come gradually though, as we have got the ability to report on the different metrics. But the strategy that I've talked about, it has some key objectives and KPIs, and those are what will be reported through to this committee. So there'll be a clear link there, and hopefully give you a far better understanding of how we're performing in this space. That's all I really wanted to note. Obviously taking the report as read, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. So we'll take questions from what Michelle's just said or over the whole report. I've got Councillor O'Brien, then His Worship the Mayor.
Thank you, Michelle. Just a question for you, item 8.1,
Yes.
page 12. Random drug testing continues to be conducted monthly. 5 employees tested each time. What's it cost per drug test? An
I
individual?
believe it's about $100 per test, so we pay about $500 a month for those random tests.
Okay, just supplementary to that, do we need to do that many? Is that often?
That is what we have stipulated in our policy. It is proving to be a useful tool. There were no non-negatives in that period of time, but it has allowed us to uncover some issues in the past.
$500 a month, right, thank you.
Thank you. Got Mayor Luca.
Last year there were 7 deaths in the construction industry, and there were 80 suicides. 3,500 people died of air pollution. I know that this is focused on what we're doing within this building and our activities, but we also a lot of those air pollution deaths are due to emissions from motor vehicles, of which we have a fleet. Does that come underneath? Is that something we should be thinking about?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think the way I would answer that is to say that with our program of work that we're cracking into with earnest next year, there's going to be a significant shift into our focus on risk. So we will be investing our effort into those activities that we're involved in that are at highest risk. The air pollution and our fleet emissions, again, that would need to go through a risk review, and whether that came out on top, I would suspect that there are other risks that we are involved in that would get higher priority. Emlyn, is there anything else you wanted to add?
May I have a supplementary?
Yes.
As a result of my sedentary lifestyle imposed on me by the job I do, I'm getting bigger and bigger. Should you be concerned about that? I mean, it sounds like a joke, but I guess I'm trying to get some context into this thing. I spent half my life defending the nuclear industry, which has a very high, good safety record, but there's the issue of perception versus reality and real impact. So, I mean, how far are we going to go with this, I guess?
I think Emlyn wants to respond to that.
So in response to that, we'll go as far as the legislation will take, but I mean, the reality is your waistline won't put me in prison, Mayor. The Health and Safety at Work Act stipulates the risks that we should be concerned around, and a lot of our risk is around contractors, and that's what this project will focus on. So there are other avenues, if you're concerned about health, that you can take, and there are other government departments and activities that we can connect you with, but it won't be connected to this project. No, this will be focused on our significant risks in relation to the Health and Safety at Work Act.
Right. Okay, thanks for that.
I had Councillor Dennis, you had your hand up. Did you still have your question? Because I see your hand's not there.
Just in can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I was just in regard to 5.2.1, the trench collapse. I was just wondering a bit light on details, and I can appreciate you don't want to say too much, but was the driver inside the machine when it went down into the ditch, and did he escape before it went or after it went down?
No, he wasn't in the excavator when it went in. It was a slow slump, if you like, so he was able to evacuate the machine. It was a 1.8 tonne excavator, which, if you know what those look like, they don't have a cab. So he was able to step out before that happened. The full investigation report is going to the exec team for review in the next week or so. So I can come back with any further questions once they've had that report.
Yeah, it'd be really good for us to see that report too. So even if some public is collected. So thank you very much. Cheers.
In case you can't see, Councillor Dennis, the staff are nodding, so that will happen. Right, a question there from Councillor Tontos.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up Councillor O'Brien's question, and it touches on the Mayor's point about perceptual risk versus real risk. We've had a number of briefings as councillors that have been really helpful in orienting us to health and safety and talking about the need to move beyond a tick box exercise into action that actually reduces risk and looks at risk in a kind of more holistic way. When we've talked about drug testing before, in terms of these reports, we've been told that there's no evidence that it reduces accidents or has any health and safety benefit. You talked about that it had brought up some issues, but I mean, those issues, that's a fairly general statement. Those issues might be the fact that they detected cannabis metabolites in someone, which doesn't indicate impairment. It may indicate that they used cannabis at the weekend at a party. I remain entirely unconvinced that random drug testing has any health and safety benefits, and that it's simply a tick box exercise to say we're doing something about drugs in the workplace. It doesn't test the number one drug of abuse in the workplace, which is alcohol, and it doesn't test for other major causes of accidents like fatigue. And so I know we're going through you talked about review of the policy. I would really hope that we give some attention to this, because it's not only in my view, doesn't produce any positive benefit, it actually produces negative benefits in that it's punitive to people. It's a moralistic approach. It's about judging people about what they do in their spare time. And in the worst case scenario, if someone does have a drug problem, what it's likely to do is move them to less detectable but more dangerous drugs. So I really hope that we will see some attention given to our random drug testing policy, because just saying it's our policy is, after this many years we've been questioning it, it's not really good enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's not really a question.
No, I was just going to say, okay, I'm not sure there was a question there, but that's fine.
The question is, why do we do random drug
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely note that we will be reviewing our whole system with a risk-based approach. This isn't the forum to talk about any of those individual circumstances, but I can assure you that there are benefits to it, and I'd be happy to discuss outside of here.
For your comment.
Do we have another question there from that report? No. Pira's just written us a little note there which says mics on, please. So just everybody remember to pop your mics on. I think everyone was pretty good that round, but noted your comment there. Thanks, Pira. Right, okay, we will take the recommendation there, which is on page 10, that the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Report, July to September 24, be received. Do I have a mover? Mayor Luca, seconder Councillor O'Brien. All those in... any debate? No, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. We'll now move on to our organisation performance report, quarter one. I think it might have said quarter four in the paper, but it is quarter one. So we'll have Harvey and Georgina. Welcome to the table. Georgia, sorry.
All good.
Morning, councillors. So as you've mentioned, this is the first organisation performance report for the year 2024-2025, and Georgia Mishevsky-Gray in the strategy and performance team will give us an overview of the key points about this paper.
Yep, so we've already noted that incorrect labelling, so sorry about that. So just some key points from the report is organisational health results are largely consistent with prior years. There has been an uptick in employees accessing the assistance program. Service performance is consistent. There has been another quarter of increased Lagoima requests. Finance performance has seen a slight decline in rates collected, which have been invoiced. Organisational preparedness is sitting just below the number required for EOC, and the cyber security training of staff is at 37%, which is also below the 50%. And lastly, the business plan is tracking well with 73% on track or completed, and the high risk or profile items have been highlighted for your information. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, we'll just start with, does anybody have any questions just on from what's just been said, or the first couple of pages of the report? Then we'll go to the appendices. So, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you for that. Just a question, seeing as there's been an increase in staff EAP access, is there cause for concern? And if there isn't, when is there?
What
triggers it?
Well, through your chair, it's a good question, Councillor. For me personally, it's one of those things, if you're going to offer it, then is success more people using it, or is success less people using it? People access it for a variety of reasons. Some of it might be work-related, a lot of it's not, but it's one of those, for me, it's actually the fact that we're offering the service, that's where the value is. I think I could speak on behalf of Michelle and I, we're not really concerned if the number goes up or down. It depends what success looks like for you, and actually for us, if there are people using it and it's not all work-related, then that's a good thing.
Cool. Thank you.
Mayor Luca.
The Lagoima request, is there, I might have missed this, but is there a theme that sticks out? Is there something that particularly people are asking about?
So I did have a scan through all the Lagoimas going back a couple of years to see if there was, and no, there's not. It's potentially just a current state of the world where we're being more scrutinised, is what it seemed to be. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll move on to. Sorry, you'd like
I
another
do have
one?
another one. Yeah.
You may indeed.
On page 23 of the agenda, which is page 8 of the report, the overall resident satisfaction with council services. I've jumped the gun, have I?
Yeah, that's okay. I'll let you off this time.
It's it looks like the line's trending downwards, depending on what uncertainty levels we put on that. Should we be worried about that? I mean, we've dropped 5 points since quarter 2 of 22 to 23. Again, I keep asking for the long-term historical picture, because this only is a snapshot. And so I don't know what's happened in the dim dark past, so I'll reiterate my request for that. I mean, we could perhaps have it as an inset to the actual graph and then a blown up version or something, but...
The results here are indeed a snapshot, but the whole picture for the resident satisfaction survey does get reported with longitudinal data once a year.
Yeah, but I'm reading this agenda and don't want to go back and...
Harvey, do you want to comment?
Yes, it's a very good point. The challenge is a few years ago, the methodology had changed with the resident satisfaction survey. So the results were not comparable. So, and that was mentioned maybe around 3 annual report or something. So it's hard to compare, and which means when we've got like a survey, it's good to keep having it for a while so that you can see the variation across.
Yeah, I guess my question is this level, is this trend that you might see there just in the noise, or is it real? That's, I guess, what I'm asking. But anyway.
So I think it's probably a bit of both. And when we reported the annual result from the resident satisfaction survey a couple of meetings ago, there was a discussion around whether the sample size was adequate to give a really valid response. There was also a discussion around whether this is actually reporting satisfaction or is it a perception survey. So there was quite an interesting discussion, and we looked when I think Dr. From SIL Research, Virgil Troy came in, and we talked about the possibility of increasing the sample size and the expense that would generate and so on. And at the time, the committee decided we would proceed for this year on the same basis, but it was noted that the validity of the actual results was, maybe not where it could be if the number was a lot higher of responses. So it is an ongoing question.
Yeah, I mean, I just ask myself when I look at that, should we be worried? But anyway.
I think he also provided some background as to why there was a very slight downward trend, and he did also contextualise that within the wider landscape and say they're seeing this across most councils. So whether it then kicks up again as we move into the new LTP period and so on is anybody's guess at this point, but I think we need to keep tracking as we are at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
So we're moving on to questions in the appendices. So first I've got Councillor Rangiaho, then Councillor Tanchos. Are you there now, Pera?
Can you fellas see me?
We can't see you,
No.
but we can hear you. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Just a slow reaction e te hauhi. Hei, tēnei te mihi atu kia tātai. Kia ora Laini, ke te tukumihi atu ki a koutou I te whakaako tō tātou reo rangatira I roto I tēnei whārangi rua te kaumatahi. So I'm just actually commending the staff on page 21 in regards to our organisation Māori development and the staff and them going out and learning our karakias waiatas. Inside of the learnings that staff go through in regards to our traditions and customs and engagements with our community, I'm going to allude back to what you learn inside of your fellas' lessons to real live engagements. Like we have the Councillor Southern District tour hairina that we recently had, and probably just the other staff and preparedness for adaptability. Why I say that in terms of tikanga and kawa, one of the learnings would be around how it was arranged to bypass two other iwis at the start of our journey. So that can be seen as quite offensive. So there may be some learnings inside of that, Lainey. And sometimes things in terms of pōhiri that you have identified on here, which is great, and identifying these pōhiri and whakatau, which that's what happened up at Mimi Harbridge. So I just like to see your fellas' experience inside of that and the adaptability of change, and probably so it does not offend. So the question is probably based around your fellas' learnings and adaptabilities around te reo and engagement with te iwi Māori.
Kia ora, Councillor Rangiaho. You're absolutely right. The haerenga to the Southern District was a fantastic opportunity to learn, and I think the staff have actually prepared, the Toikotuia team who arranged the visit have actually prepared a kind of review summary of some of those learnings. From a personal perspective, I really valued the opportunity to be part of those pōhiri and to meet directly with the different hapu that we met with and the iwi that we met with up in the hills and the valleys, which was awesome, and particularly that very moving pōhiri at Miha that you referred to. I think in terms of the report and the learnings and the tikanga kawa sessions that we have been going through, so Pua Waitanga o Te Reo classes, I participated myself in those, and it was really gratifying to feel the connection between the classroom-based learning and then to actually go out and actually experience that in practice, particularly in Tai Whakaia Marae recently as well, where we were able to kind of bring it all together. What I can't comment on the kind of way forward that Michelle is leading through the next phase, but and she might want to in a moment, but I can tell you that this is a journey that everyone in the staff is very committed to, and self-review, self-assessment, critically asking the questions, what could we do better next time, is all part of that journey. So kia ora, thank you for those kind words.
No, you're welcome. But as a follow-up, I must admit, even as councillors, as Māori ward councillors, we kind of revert back to what we know as well. So, and need to acknowledge our waiata when Councillor O'Brien speak has to come back from tūtapa mai nuku, tūtapa mai rangi. And we weren't able to learn that really well. But thank you, and great learnings. If you need a bus driver to take another bus up to Ruatahuna, we've got bus drivers who know how to manage that road, but also well done to the bus driver who took us up there, because apparently we crashed at around Ruatahuna. So kia ora.
Michelle, did you want to have a...
Sorry, Michelle, this Michelle.
Oh, sorry, this Michelle. Sorry, there. I didn't see that you were online with us, Michelle. Welcome.
Oh no, that's kei te pai. Tēnā koe ngā pira mō whakaaro. I just wanted to thank you, Lainey. You explained that quite perfectly, but in saying the learnings we're taking is, yep, we are definitely taking that into account. What we did was we actually engaged with the iwi, and the iwi gave us their timings, what they wanted to happen. So I guess the next part of that would be to actually ask, can we have a whakatau, can we have a pōhiri, is it appropriate? So those are all learnings, and we're picking up on that now. But that was how it ran the day. And then obviously with the bus running very, very late, we had to pivot and be flexible to allow, the councillors to get a really good view of places like Minginui and Mirupara. So we are trying really hard to be flexible. However, there are some things that are just out of our control, and I'll be honest, we are not comfortable asking our iwi or telling them how we want to do things, but obviously as a learning, we will continue to ask. So ka pai.
Just a follow-up, just a quick follow-up. I don't think it's asking, but that will be part of the learnings and understanding. As we went to the journey, we did have a whakatau up at Tūhoe. That will always be the way of Tūhoe. And then it was different when we got to Minginui because it was quite relaxed. And then we did have a whakatau. So it's just making those kind of judgments inside of there. I'm not suggesting that we would ask what it is, but that we would know and understand and get that feel. And I believe that's part of the team's role when they do their engagements with the different iwis. But I'm learning also to support staff as well. So ngā mihi.
Ka pai, thank you, ngā pira.
Ka pai, thanks Michelle, thanks ngā pira. I'm just going to pause for about 10 seconds while Councillor Pullard joins us around the table, because he might have some very valid, important questions that he needs to contribute. So I've got...
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem, welcome. I'll just let you get your computer out because of the... Right, so we've got questions from Councillor Tanchos and Councillor James.
Thank you. I have two questions. The one follows a bit from Councillor Rangiaho. On page 21, I remember an email coming through that Rahui Papa was going to come through and talk to us about the kingitanga, and I think that was councillors as well as staff, maybe. Is that entirely off the table now, or will that follow up another time? Or
I believe that the Toikotuia team has rescheduled it to early in the new year.
Okay.
But yes, we're really hoping that still goes ahead soon, because there is quite an appetite to learn more about that, and we'd love to be able to open that up to as many people who are interested as want to be there.
Great, thank you for that. My other question's on page 24, and it relates to the categories of requests for service. And the report says, it's talking about the change in the way it's reported or the way it's logged, resulting from a request from Audit New Zealand. And it says this has mainly affected the water RFS type, with multiple calls regarding the same water leak now being logged for the same issue. I just didn't quite understand what that sentence was saying. Could you explain that to me?
I'll have a go, and Harvey can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that until April this year, we were logging a single RFS for multiple calls regarding the same issue,
Right.
and the rest were treated as an RFI, request for information, rather than service, because when the first call comes through regarding a leak or whatever it is, the service is activated and the response to that request begins, and then anything subsequent is kind of connected back to that same issue. So it's only information required rather than a separate service. However, in the last annual report, we were advised that we needed to change that so that they are all requests for services, which obviously skews that data quite considerably. The process to change that was addressed in April this year, so that was when it began being reported differently. And I can't comment on what that's done in terms of the data, but Harvey might be able to if that's part of the question.
I don't have much more information, but
That's
Did our GM did you want to add something there? You've got your hand on the mic.
That's spot on, Lainey. Actually, Cherise might be able to offer a bit more as the former customer service manager.
Oh, so you're poor,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to comment on the actual data, but I do know also the system, the ozone platform that we use and the system that the Three Water Stem use don't really work in collaboration, and so therefore that initial request was the only one that they could really receive at their end, and so the multiple that's been previously logged have sort of not been recorded appropriately. But yeah, as to the data, sorry, I can't respond.
Thanks. Right.
So, just following up, so clearly that's going to boost the numbers of requests for services. I think I heard you saying you weren't clear what other impacts that would have in terms of the... I was just thinking, does it mean anything for us apart from that it will just boost the request for service numbers?
in terms of performance, it shouldn't. In terms of the volume was the bit I was unclear. I actually just don't know by how much they jump up.
Yeah.
But what's gratifying is that what we measure is how quickly we respond, and that has remained consistent. So even though they're being categorised differently, what is actually happening in reality is has not really changed, but our responses are still meeting our targets.
Because they'll all average out anyway.
Yeah, and the deviation is very small, right? So actually, we're very good at consistently responding well within our targeted response times.
All right, thank you.
Right, good question from Councillor James.
Thanks for the report, really good. Just on page 27, and I mean, forgive me, I might be getting a bit pedantic, but under debt as a proportion of annual plan forecast, we're running 9 million below our forecast, but you've got a red line there. I would have thought that
I saw that one too.
the green line, it would have been a green line to be below forecast debt. I mean, I can understand rate debtors where we're below target for rate collection. I can understand that being red, but to me, less debt is always positive, isn't it?
yeah, Vivian can confirm. I think the target is to be within the 5%, and we were just 6%, so it's been seen as out of target, but I understand your point. It's
Less debt is not always a positive. It's actually about being able to forecast what debt we need and then hitting close to that is good. But yeah, to your point, I think, it's a slightly interesting way of categorising the result. Do you have a comment, Bevan?
Not really. I think you cover it. It's an indication of what we're delivering. So if we're not within 5% of the forecast, it means something else is happening. So it's just a measure to highlight that.
Yeah, I see
There might be
that.
some other challenges.
I see that, but it is under debt, so I would have thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I know I'm getting.
But it means something
I'm
else
getting
is not
pedantic,
happening.
But it's on the report.
It's just that the measure is literally not within the target.
Yeah, I know.
So even though it's positive, it still goes as a red, unfortunately. Right, do we have any other questions on the report? Councillor O'Brien. Oh, sorry. Oh, then Councillor O'Brien, then Mayor Luca.
Thank you. Just on page 28, the cyber security trainings, no before. We did some in government as well. Is that similar? Is that similar training? No
Sorry,
before.
could you repeat the
The no
question?
before training. So
The no
we did some
before?
governance training in that respect as well through no before. Is it the similar? Is training similar? The cyber security.
Through your chair, yeah, it is similar. You did some of that cybersecurity training, staff go through it. But just to let you know, I'm glad you gave us that segue. So early next year, we're going to introduce mandatory cybersecurity training for staff, so they won't be able to access the system unless they got through that. So we should see that number creep up to 100% pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm just interested to know what the government's stats were. Just in case we need a coffee too for incentives.
I'm not sure we can. Yeah, we can sort you out a coffee.
All right, good point.
Thank you.
Mayor Luca.
Just on the capital expenditure item on page 27, the variance is 29.4%, which is quite big. So I presume is the budget target is 10.79. That means at this moment we expect to be there, but we're quite behind. Is that a warning sign? Should we get worried about that, or as in, are we going to land where we often land, or are we likely to close that gap?
I think it's a bit of a hangover from a pattern that's been seen over the past few years, and that there is a lag on our capital expenditure, and I wouldn't call it a target, I would just say that's what we had expected. But I think we are slowly closing that gap as we move forward, but this is essentially a knock-on for the issue around CapEx that we've previously addressed, and that's why there was the rolling 3-year average programme kind of put in place.
So you're relatively confident at the moment that we'll be able to get within whatever it was that we were trying to get, capital expenditure within 25% or something?
I'd say that we're getting better at forecasting what we're going to spend and when we're going to spend it. But, we're still room for improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Bevan.
I could probably add a little bit more to that as well. So the LTP program will have phasing included in it. So you generally start off with design and concept before you start getting into the spending of the money. So a project can go through 80% of its life cycle before you've spent $1 if you're delivering design and stuff in-house. So that's generally not factored into a financial measure of reporting against project delivery. Also, we've had a significant chunk of our transport program cut, so we won't be delivering on that. And then the other element, which is critical here, is we adopted the LTP late, or later than expected, so that will have some creep in there as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were looking at doing that phasing in as part of our budgeting process as well. So I think going forward, we should see a little bit more closer alignment.
You'll see a lot more of that, I think, ahead of the next LTP. With a PMO and EPMO in place, a lot of that thinking about scope, design, deliver, closeout should be a lens that's cast over in our LTP Capital Works program, and that allows you to cascade work where you're reliant on individual or internal resources to deliver those. So that will give you a more realistic plan. At the moment, it's very asset management focused in terms of the program that we put forward for CapEx. So we've got to deliver all of these asset renewals and upgrades, and it comes from an asset system. It doesn't have the project management things put across it. around what you actually need to deliver. So I think the next LTP will be a lot more robust and detailed in terms of the phasing of those projects.
Thank you. Councillor
Appendix.
James?
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're right.
Just on page 35, in the overview of council high profile items, I see we've got Matata wastewater down for 2029 and it's a high risk that we aren't going to deliver. Is that sort of I would have thought by 2029 we'd be well and truly delivering it.
We can get Walter can respond to that probably best if he doesn't mind. Are you there?
Tēnā koutou, yep, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Did you want that one?
Kia ora. Yep, the identification of that risk item against that project is purely recognising the funding risk. So council doesn't have certainty around the funding yet for the delivery of that project, and that the costs are currently much higher than the funding that council has confirmed. So that's why that project's been listed as red.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Yeah, just going back to page 29, the council business plan. On that table, completion's already on the board. Third item, Wairaka Centennial Park, river steps and access improvements. We still haven't got that right. We're still getting a build-up. Do we have a plan for how we're going to stop that build-up of, I guess, rather than having a contract to clean up all that mess every day? Do we have a plan as to how we're going to avoid that or stop that?
Sorry, which page?
Yeah, I was trying to.
So page 29.
Page 29, completion.
Council business plan report, completion's already on the board. Third item. 11.01.03, Wairaka Centennial Park, river steps and access improvements. We obviously still have a problem there. We're still getting rubbish building up there and we're having a contractor go in and still clean it up. Do we have a plan?
I think they said at one of our previous meetings that someone was going to be clearing that out every day as
Yeah,
part
well, that's
of
not a very good plan, is it? Do we have a plan to say, how can we avoid that? Do we have to build up some more rocks around there or something?
I think that's certainly one of the considerations. So there's ongoing assessment of what some of the solutions are available. At the moment, from a risk perspective, we do have contractors that operate down around the boat ramp to clear debris. It won't be too much extra ask for them to just check that area and make sure any debris is removed from there. But yeah, there is an ongoing assessment of what we can do to stop that from happening.
All right, thank you.
Great question, thanks. Councillor Puller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following on from that, at our last meeting, we talked about the possibility of raising that rock groin, which Mark acknowledged would make a difference. So I presume that's floating around in the system somewhere. Thank you. Because that would actually stop the material coming into that area.
All right, well, staff can take that on board then, unless anyone wanted to comment. No, lovely. I don't have anybody else who's got a question. Mayor Luca again, yes?
Just Bevan, on what you said before, looking at page 33, transport connections, is the big orange bar because there's all this work that we're not going to be able to do now? Is that, or does it include the work that is doable? Are we behind schedule on what we've decided we're going to do, or is it because of all the stuff that was taken off the table?
It's probably a combination of both. You'll recall that the NLTP didn't get approved by government until very late, and so we couldn't start a number of those programs. So we expect over time that should move to green, and the projects or programs should be updated to reflect what we've agreed through resolution around the program of work we're going to deliver.
Right, so this graph hasn't been updated, that's why there's so much orange? Is that what you're saying?
It'll be both, as well as the lateness of the commitment from Waka Kotahi.
through you, Madam Chair, if I might be able to add a further comment
Sure.
to what the GM's just shared, is that the ELT have in I guess assessing and considering the Q1 results, have already acknowledged that there is a lot of contextual change that's come about since even the development of the long-term plan. And so we've actually got a workshop with ELT in I think it's late Jan or early Feb to, you know, have a fresh look at the work program, a bit of a reality check given those contextual changes. So the transport subsidies being one of those, the change in chief executive and GM team being another one, and you know the time that takes for you know the organisation to resettle and reframe priorities on the back of that. So there is a number of drivers there that are requiring us to kind of have a real-time assessment of the work program with implications for this current year and what we're able to deliver, and so that might impact some of those items that are identified as orange in terms of whether some of those might even have to be rescheduled out of this year or even discontinued because there's no funding available or less funding available. And it will probably inform the development of the annual plan as well, because some of those contextual changes are going to push through not just into the current year but into the subsequent years as well. So we do have a workshop on our radar to have a deliberate process to work through that.
Thank you. If there's no other supplementary, Councillor Rangioho.
Rangioho.
I know I said it wrong. I just hope nobody was going to notice.
The owner of the name will notice.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about
that. Okay. So on page, going back to page 29, completion already on the board. Now this one is with the Miripara pool heat pump repair or replacement. Which is it? Is it being repaired or replaced? Because there were two pumps down. I think two pumps at the Miripara pools, and it was getting the temperature right in the pool. Can we get a clarity? Is it a repair or replacement?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can look into that. I'm uncertain at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I think it was a repair because the replacement was going to be quite significant, and I think Georgie mentioned that on our bus tour.
Okay.
That was the plan.
So we can get that clarified. Bevan, just to follow through. So there are two pumps at the Miripara pools. One is okay, and was it to replace the other one?
Now you've gone too far into the detail. Sorry.
We'll let the staff get back to you.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions on that report? If not, I'll take a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Puller moves. Seconded, Councillor Tanchos. Is there any debate? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much. We're running a little bit ahead of time, so we're just going to skip from our BOPLASS report. We're going to go to our non-financial reporting in quarter one, which is on page 90. We have a presenter for BOPLASS and he's just not quite here yet, so we'll start with page 90 and have we got, is it Ayla? No? Oh, Harvey, you're all right to?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Harvey. If you wanted to just give us a quick summary.
Morning, councillors. So this is a quarterly report of the non-financial performance for the LTP 24-34. So it's the first quarter of the first year of the LTP. We do have 69 performance measures, 33 of them are mandatory. The new performance measures from this LTP have been included in here, and they are now mapped against the strategic priority. Just as a reminder, it's a report by exception. So the report focuses on the area where the measures were either at risk or not met. Most of the measures are on track, which is 80%. 50% are at risk, so there are explanations around the ones that are at risk, and some of them relates to the lack of staff resourcing. But we now have new staff in place, so we are hoping that the result will improve. The 5% of the measures that are not achieved are relating to Three Waters, and you will have more information in the appendix. It is worth noting that the safety of drinking water has been replaced by a new mandatory performance measures to reflect the 2022 drinking water standards, but we have reported on this since 2023. And the last point I'll make, although not reported in this quarter, the reduction in green gas emission is at risk for year end. We've added it here. We've added it here for visibility, and it was discussed in our last EER committee. So staff is taking action on that. Yeah, and that's all I had to say.
Right, well, we'll do the report first and then we'll take questions on the appendix. So is any questions of Harvey or any questions just in the body of the report?
What did you say, green gas emission? What was, I didn't quite hear.
Yeah, greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh, greenhouse gas, okay, all right. Yep, thanks.
Councillor Tantos. What page?
Page 95.
95, yes.
Yeah,
Turn to your mic.
So thank you. A couple of questions. The first one was, so the, at the top of that page, it talks about council received one satisfaction survey back from those who used the consent process, showed a result of 40% user satisfaction. So that's one person.
That's correct.
Who has said they're less than, they give 4 out of 10. Okay, that's
more simple.
Further down that page, talked about the percentage of non-notified resource consents processed within statutory timeframes expected to improve as councillors successfully recruited a replacement development engineer. Does that fill all the gaps in that space for us, or do we still have, because I know recruitment's been a challenge, right?
Yeah, so in terms of the resource consent team, yes, that does provide us a full team.
Okay.
Yeah, and the development engineer role is pretty critical in terms of the relationship with Three Waters and Transport,
yeah,
and getting timely comments and coordinating that aspect of a development. So it's a good appointment.
Where did they come from? Like, where did we recruit from?
The person who's taken that role was originally studying up in Auckland, prior to that, Philippines.
Right, okay. Yeah. Thank you. And one other question was around the amount of waste sent to landfill. And so we've set our target as a ratio to the national average. The national average has gone down, so we haven't met our target, is what I'm understanding. Do we know what's driven the national average to go down?
No, I'm not aware of it, but Nigel may be able to respond to that.
It'd be interesting to understand, and whether those same things are affecting us, or are they just a local issue where someone's just doing really good, and is there anything we can learn from that as well?
Yeah, we'll take action on that, and we'll liaise with Nigel to provide you with information.
Thank you.
So if there's no more questions on the report, the appendix starts on page 98. Do we have any questions of Appendix 1? No? Mayor Luca?
I'm just wondering on the water thing, disease burden, I mean, gastrointestinal illness cases, do we track that sort of stuff? I mean, look, over time, or some agency does, but
I'm not sure.
I think that would be Toi Te Ora Public Health that would track anything like that.
Right. Okay.
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
No, my question is, I mean, okay, we're monitoring water quality, but my question is whether or not there's any monitorable impact on health. So, okay, you might have had a period where we've got red excursions because the water got turbid, but has it got any consequences? You understand what I'm trying to say? Is there any causal relationship between what we're monitoring and what actually is occurring in the health space?
Can you leave that one with us? I think we'll...
No, yeah, I was just looking for something here, but yeah, okay, all right.
We'll do
get
an
back
explore.
to that.
Right, no other questions on the appendix. We'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor James, seconded Councillor Dunchos. Any debate? No, all those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Carried, thank you very much. That was just to receive the report. Right, we'll now welcome to the table Stephen Boyle, who's the CE from BOPLASS. CE BOPLASS, Chairperson? CE from BOPLASS? Thank you, it wasn't on my notes. Right, so welcome to the table and welcome to our council, and thank you very much for taking the time to come and present to us today. We've got a few slides here.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on BOPLASS and the success we're providing for Whakatane District Council and, of course, our other 8 shareholding councils as well. It's been a very successful year for BOPLASS and ultimately for our shareholding councils, with a number of new initiatives undertaken in the last financial year. But before talking to our 12-month performance, I thought it was probably worth just providing a quick reminder of what BOPLASS is about, and particularly for any members of the committee that may not have had a lot of exposure to BOPLASS previously. I will move through it fairly quickly, but just to give you a bit of history of BOPLASS and some of the benefits that we're achieving for the councils. So before BOPLASS was established, there was limited collaboration between the councils in the Bay of Plenty, and a forward-thinking group of CEs recognised that benefits could be delivered to the councils through collaboration. And that covers the 8 councils in the Bay of Plenty, including Taupo, and also Gisborne as a member of BOPLASS as well. The reasons for establishing BOPLASS are just as relevant today as what they were when BOPLASS was initially established. Financial imperatives. We all know councils are under pressure to deliver more and spend less. By collaborating with their neighbours does provide an opportunity to undertake some projects more effectively and more efficiently than doing them on their own. By joining up with neighbouring councils effectively adds capacity to the council, by being able to tap into resource from other councils. And sharing knowledge is really important. Councils are knowledge-based organisations, and by working with in collaboration with other councils, there's the opportunity to share that knowledge and benefit from knowledge from other councils as well. And of course, government initiatives, they certainly haven't changed. I mean, there's a lot of pressure from central government around councils looking to collaborate and establish shared services to obviously provide some efficiencies as well. So the structure of BOPLASS is we have a board of directors, which is the 9 CEOs of our participating councils, and we have an independent director who's the chair, Craig O'Connell. And our projects are run through advisory groups, so we have groups set up for specific areas of council business. I've just given some examples here with the IT managers group, GIS group, health and safety group, procurement, insurance. There's a number of different groups that we work with across councils, and then they involve council staff in those particular groups to run the projects. Our 2 main work streams are shared services and joint procurement. They're really quite different in their approach. Shared service provides an opportunity for if councils are delivering a service to do that in conjunction with other councils. Sometimes that can be delivered by one of the BOPLASS councils, it can be delivered by BOPLASS itself, or it can be a third party that delivers those services. Shared services requires an upfront investment for long-term benefits, as opposed to joint procurement, where BOPLASS aggregates the volumes of the participating councils and goes and represents them in the marketplace, and is able to provide basically instant savings back to the councils, and we've had a lot of success in that as well. Often joint procurement will result in getting improved service levels because of the increased volume across the larger group as well. So when BOPLASS was established, we were asked to make things better, faster, cheaper and easier through BOPLASS, and I've provided some examples there which we continue to achieve. There's a number of better services that we've delivered through working collectively across the group. We have faster services, and a good example is the 1 gig network that we put in between our councils. A lot of examples around doing things cheaper through our joint procurement, and easier by having single contracts through BOPLASS is a lot easier than councils having to manage 9 separate contracts effectively. We've undertaken over 46 initiatives, and the resultant savings back to our councils exceeds $34 million. It's probably a really good time to remind the committee that BOPLASS is a small organisation. We're only 2.5 FTE. I'm the only full-time employee in the company, so returning $34 million back to councils is a fairly good return on investment. Looking specifically at the savings for Whakatane District Council, in the last financial year, the savings were $363,000 for the council. Since BOPLASS inception, there's been $3.42 million saved by Whakatane District Council through working in collaboration with the neighbouring councils. There's a lot of ongoing savings from those contracts, because once they're in place, of course, we continue to benefit from them as well. But it's not just about the hard financial savings, it's also, there's a lot of additional benefits from working with other councils as well, that obviously there's a lower procurement cost if you're doing that in conjunction with other councils. There's a simplified ongoing management of the vendors that are appointed. And as I said before, there's a lot of shared knowledge, support and best practice across the groups as well through working collaboratively. So looking specifically at our annual report, you will have noted that there's a long list of projects there, and I'm not going to talk through all of them, but I've just picked out 4 of the key projects and just want to talk briefly to those as an example of some of the value that's being delivered back to Whakatane District Council. The first one is BOPLASS has been working with the Ministry of Social Development on projects to reduce youth crime and retail crime across the Bay of Plenty region. And as a result of this partnership, we were able to secure $1 million of co-funding for our councils to help support the development of crime prevention initiatives across the Greater Bay of Plenty region. The initial work from this funding was used for upgrading of CCTV across the Bay of Plenty region, and particularly around the increasing full-time monitoring of the CCTV as well. And those initiatives were undertaken in conjunction with New Zealand Police as well. By getting that $1 million of co-funding, that's $1 million the councils didn't have to find. That was able to go directly into those projects. The next project is waste operator licensing, and it's one of our larger projects, and BOPLASS is leading that on behalf of all of the Bay of Plenty councils, Gisborne and Waikato councils are part of the project as well. And we're establishing a waste operator and licensing data system to manage all waste operators across the region. Under the current arrangements, different councils have different arrangements with waste contractors. This is going to create some standardisation, and it will also mean that councils can get much improved data from the operators than what they're able to achieve at the moment. And this service is going to benefit council and also benefit the waste operators as well by establishing consistency across the region and much more accurate reporting of waste streams. The aerial imagery program has continued to add significant value and savings to our councils, particularly the LiDAR data, which was really key during and following last year's major storm events. LiDAR allows us to create highly accurate 3D terrain and surface models across the Bay of Plenty region, and amongst other uses, this is used for mapping flood modelling purposes and for understanding contours and water flows. And I'm going to quickly talk about the BOPLASS insurance program, because insurance represents a significant spend for councils, And our collective approach to insurance has provided substantial savings for all of the BOPLASS councils. We've saved about $18 million in premiums since inception, and last year the savings were over $2 million across the councils in premium savings. And while the premium savings are important, more importantly is actually being able to secure the right cover and full cover for councils. And in the current insurance market, this continues to be a real challenge, particularly with the placements for underground infrastructure insurance. And that's mainly due to the high level of, or an unprecedented level of claims globally for storm damage and asset damage. And the underwriters have become much more cautious in their approach. And there's a level of hesitancy on their part to take on insurance that they see as being too risky for them. BOPLASS front foots us, and we take a proactive approach. We engage directly with the international and the local underwriters, and we highlight to them council's robust risk management practices and the resiliency work that's undertaken by councils. And as a result of that, the underwriters feel more comfortable to take on the insurance. And this year we're able to get full cover for all of our councils in all the categories that were required. You will have heard stories about a lot of councils around New Zealand that are struggling to do that and are having to continue with some of their assets uninsured. So it's a real benefit through being part of the collective program that being able to secure that full insurance. Talking about financial performance, we've finished the year on target. Our turnover. Oh, sorry, pushed the wrong one. Our turnover was around about $2.5 million. We have a balanced budget. We're supposed to finish the year on zero, which is always pretty difficult to end up right on zero. Ideally, we shouldn't be making a profit and obviously not making a loss for our councils as well. We finished the year with a very small deficit of $1,300, which is pretty good when you've turned over $2.5 million to sort of finish pretty close to the zero mark anyway. Just looking at some of the future direction and the strategy for BOPLASS, our board is determined to lift the focus on shared services. There's significant value that can be delivered back to council through shared services. As I explained earlier, it is a little bit more challenging, that it requires that upfront investment to get the long-term benefits, but that's our focus moving forward. We'll continue to do joint procurement, of course, but to focus more on shared services. Also ensuring that everything we do has a sustainable future as well. It's important we remain adaptive to focus on a changing environment. I mentioned before about guidance from central government. We need to be able to make sure that we're aligned with how central government sees that collaboration can work across councils as well. And we really want to continue focusing inter-regional collaboration opportunities. We currently work very closely with CoLab, which is the Waikato LAS, and with MWLAS, Manawatu and Wanganui. We try to reduce the duplication of effort across our councils. We certainly don't want to duplicate effort across our LASs, so there's a number of projects that we're undertaking collectively with the other LASs. And the last point there is the Mahi Tahi Local Government Collaboration Portal. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but our board recognised that quite often there was activity happening in one council that neighbouring councils weren't aware of. So we established a collaboration portal where people can share information about projects they're undertaking or just share information. That's literally exploded on us. It's no longer a BOPLASS initiative. This covers the whole of New Zealand, with councils all around the country now participating in the collaboration portal. And we've formed a number of groups in there for different areas of council business where people from councils can interact with their peers to share information or share documentation, which quite often reduces the amount of duplication that's happening as well.
Can I just, Stephen, just like to add also, through the earlier part of Three Waters reform, the collaboration portal was set up to manage all of the Entity B councils, so there are 22 councils. I worked with Grant Probert to set that up. And it's been repurposed to be a bit more local water done well focused now. So each council has their own sort of page so they can prepare local water service delivery plans, which might make some of those amalgamation kind of conversations a bit easier when we get to those.
Thank you. We've also got a question from Mayor Luca.
Yeah, well, my question was actually related to that, because at the last LGNZ conference, Mayor Brown says, you guys ought to start thinking about getting yourselves grouped, else they'll group you. Now, BOPLASS is all about collaboration. We've been doing it for years. What could we do? I mean, that's the procurement side, right? I'm not sure what else we could do that's any better, but what would you suggest? Since you're in this collaboration space, I mean, it's all this talk about scale, which is where you're sitting too. So what could we do better? Since you're already saving money, we're already doing the right things.
I'd have to say that as far as local government collaboration's concerned, BOPLASS is probably considered the leader in that space. Doesn't mean that we can't do more, but it has been held up as an example by central government of how councils can work together. The real opportunity for us now, besides the hard savings that are returned to councils through the joint procurement, is in the shared services, where if multiple councils are doing the same thing, the opportunity to be doing that once and doing it together as opposed to all delivering the same service in a less efficient manner than doing it collectively anyway. So, yeah. Shared services tends to be a little bit more threatening to people because sometimes it does involve changes to the structure of how jobs are undertaken if it's being done collectively across the group. Joint procurement doesn't provide a threat to anybody because it just provides immediate value back to the councils. So we're aware that it's more challenging to develop shared services, but as I said, our board's really focused on ensuring that we recognise more opportunities in that space.
Right. So what would be an example of a shared opportunity, a shared service opportunity?
The waste management example that I used before is a really good example because it takes a lot of time, energy and resource for councils to undertake that separately at the moment rather than that being done collectively. A really good example of a shared service would be the pre-qualification of contractors that want to do work for council from a health and safety perspective. It used to be a time-consuming process for each council to engage with each contractor and make sure they're up to the standard to undertake work for the council. We put it in as a shared service where there's a portal and it's right across Waikato and Bay of Plenty. If the contractor wants to do work for Whakatane District Council, they go into the portal and they have to meet all the standards that are on the portal, and if they're pre-qualified, then they can move forward to doing work for the council. But the real advantage with that is they can then do work for any council that's a member of that. So from the contractor's perspective, they don't have to go through that process every time. But more importantly, for councils, from their perspective, if a contractor's pre-qualified, then they can begin work for a council where they haven't go through.
So the threat that you perceive councils to feel is because of loss of control, sovereignty, or whatever you want to call it? Is that what you think the threat, why councils are threatened?
No, sorry, my comments are more at staff level, being concerned about what it could mean for their roles if a service was delivered once rather than being delivered 9 times. So yeah, and that can be managed, but it's another step in the process of delivering a shared service. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So no problem.
Our GM wants to say something.
Stephen, when we first had to deliver Section 17A reviews across the country, BOPLASS led that process and we all worked together or tried to work together. I think the intention from government around creating that process was to get councils or to create trigger points where councils would talk to each other around shared service opportunities and more collaboration. That hasn't, Section 17A reviews kind of hasn't really come up again since the initial one we had to do. Is there an opportunity for BOPLASS to play more of a role in ongoing Section 17A reviews?
Yes, there definitely is, and we've had other councils make the same comment that initially the collaboration was really beneficial, but it hasn't continued, so it's something that should be picked up again, definitely.
And supplementary, do you think your balanced budget model may impact your the organisation's ability to pursue more shared services than what you'd like to?
Quite possibly, because with the requirement for upfront investment, then we have to make sure that we've got the budget to undertake those projects. The impact is probably more on councils than it is on BOPLASS, because they're having to invest in something without seeing any immediate returns for it. But once again, I think it's manageable, but our shareholders might have to accept that BOPLASS's balanced budget mightn't look so strong when there's that upfront investment for the benefits being returned at a later date. So yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I think we might I don't think Stephen's quite finished his presentation yet, have you?
I've just got one more slide, if that's okay.
Shall we do the slide and then we'll do questions on the presentation?
Yeah, it's really just a summary of what BOPLASS can offer to Whakatane District Council and our other shareholding councils as well. Through shared services in particular, there's the opportunity to be more efficient in service delivery. I've put a good example up there, was the aerial imagery. Prior to BOPLASS, every council flew their own region for aerial imagery, but they also maintained their own aerial imagery, which meant that there was a database that had to be maintained. BOPLASS now flies generally the larger areas across multiple councils, and across the whole BOPLASS region, that's all in one database. It only has to be quality control checked once, and it only has to be updated or upgraded once, rather than 9 councils doing that separately. Simplified engagement, so the intention is to have services in place that help with council engagement with their communities. It can particularly be delivered through online services. And we really want to be focused on long-term regional and inter-regional planning as well, to try and avoid councils all undertaking similar things and doing it in isolation to each other, and that's where BOPLASS can continue to add value. And the last point, of course, is financial savings. It's the question I get asked the most: how much money do you save my council? And it's still a continuing focus for us as well.
Thank you for that great presentation. Councillor Tunchos had a question.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks for the presentation, and thank you for the work that you do, because you clearly deliver a lot of benefits for all of the councils who are part of BOPLASS. You talked about significant financial savings. I think the collaboration portal was really cool. There's some great things going on. So yeah, congratulations. My question was around you mentioned in the slide, it didn't say it so much in the report, around the ESG and kind of sustainability as a focus going forward. And I was interested what you saw as the focus for BOPLASS in that space, as we move forward.
Thanks for your compliments first. Anyway, always nice to be acknowledged. So this is something that the board are looking at, where the opportunities are around ESG, and I have to say that I probably can't answer that question, because it's something that was just put in place at the end of last year when we updated our statement of intent. So maybe if I could get more information at board level, I could feed it back to the council around that anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great.
Right, do we have any other questions on the presentation?
I'd also like to thank you for the work you're doing. It looks great to me. There's more of it. And it'd be interesting to see what the shared services, where you're heading in that direction, and if we can do better there, I think that it benefits everybody, really. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, is it now, Pera? Got your hand up there? Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your report. That was a really good read of your report. Probably the only question I have is updating of your directors. I see there's Stephanie O'Sullivan is still in there. Has that been updated, and what does that look like to have our CE sitting inside the directors' table?
Stephen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Morena, nā pera.
Morena, Steve.
Yeah, we've been through that process and I have been appointed and I believe this is the annual report, so it's reflecting the last 12 months. So, yeah, capturing Steph and her role over the last 12 months. But the process for going forward is all done, including I've received an induction pack, which is over 150 pages long, which I haven't read yet.
I'm reading. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, buddy.
A report did come to us to approve the personnel changes, so yeah, we have done that. But right, any other questions of Stephen on the presentation? If not, we'll move to Councillor Pullop.
No, happy to move.
I was just going to move to questions on the report. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on the? There's really nothing in the report, but does anybody have any questions in the annual BOPLASS annual report on starting at page 40? No? Great. Councillor Puller is happy to move that. Is there a seconder? Councillor James. Any debate? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for taking the time out to come and talk to us. It was very enlightening presentation, and it is fabulous work that BOPLASS does, and it's lovely to see the savings that we're actually making. And I know it's an organisation that has been around for many, many years. I mean, 20 years plus, hasn't it? It's been there.
No, it was only 2010 when it was.
Was it? Okay.
It was established prior to that, but that's when business sort of kicked off anyway. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments and thanks for the opportunity to present.
No, thank you. Right, so we've got one last report which I think we will do before we move to having a morning tea break. So we have got our financial reporting. It's on page 102. And we have our, we have our GM Finance and Commercial Services. Mr. Gray, would you like to give us a brief summary of the report? Now, first off, I'd just like to say that everybody does have a hard copy in front of them, and it went into Stella last night. So this financial reporting table was omitted from the report, and it should actually be on page 102, and it should be after that financial performance overview and before the operating performance summaries. It's very hard to follow the explanations without the actual table, so apologies that has come through like that way, but Bevan will run us through it and I'm sure it'll all make sense.
Morena tātou. Thank you for that, Chair. So I guess, first of all, apologies for missing that table. Something happens when you transfer between our reporting system and Stella, so we've got a process now that we will check in with the report writer that everything's come through okay into Stella. I'll take the report as read. Most of it is probably reasonably self-explanatory, right? So we've had significant cuts to our Waka Kotahi program, which is going to impact your operational subsidies as well as your capital subsidies and also your capital works program. The other elements of it are reasonably in line with budget. A couple of things I would like to highlight though is our other operating income and our financing costs. So those are a result of the pre-funded LGFA funding that we went through, I think, before the end of last financial year. So I think it was 16, should be in the report, $16 million of additional pre-approved funding from LGFA. So we're got that on a call account until we go and go through the capital works and spend it. So that was done because we could get favourable rates at the time. I think the graphs highlight quite nicely in terms of telling the story between what we've budgeted and where the significant impacts are. So if you looked at the operating revenue one, you can see the reduction in red or orange as it comes through for the subsidies and grants. and the increase in blue around the operating revenue, interest revenue on call account. And then the same from finance, from an expenditure perspective. Our payments to staff and payments to suppliers are lower than what we budgeted for the quarter, and finance costs are higher than what we budgeted again for the pre-approved pre-funding of the loans. Dropping down into an activity level, there's some explanations of where we see some significant variances. Most of those are timing related in terms of delivery of those projects. So the runway lighting navigational upgrades for the airport, the flood wall integration project, Western Catchment upgrade renewal, that's for stormwater, and then network renewals and resource consents, and the Altamahi water storage plains backflow preventers. Those are quite complex capital projects, and so again, it's trying to use a financial spend data to give you an update or progress around a project when it's actually a laggard response to project delivery. Non-rate steaders, you'll see a reasonable increase since last year in the airport space, and that's because through conversations through Ministry of Transport in December 2023, we invoiced MOT for all the arrears that were outstanding. Those still remain outstanding until we get those audited accounts done. So previously we weren't invoicing those. So that's the big driver of that increase. Total land rates debt, that's a little bit lower than what has been in previous years. Our delay to the adoption of the LTP probably has had a significant impact on that. But hopefully over the course of the year, we should see that come back.
Thank you. And just in case anyone hadn't noticed, this is actually a new format of this report. So I'd like to say thanks to the staff for taking the time to implement the new formatted report, which when we have the insertion of that table will make a lot more sense going forward. So yes, if you could just pass on our thanks to the staff, that'd be great.
And thank you to the chair for sending through your thoughts.
It's okay. Right, I've got questions from Mayor Luca and Councillor Puller.
Just want to make sure that I've got this right, that on 106, that little table, as in quarter one, for quarter one we'll only collect 91.6% of the rates for 2025?
Yes. So that's the first quarter of the LTP.
Right. As compared to, I mean, if you look at 23, 24, it seems to be trending downwards. Is that a fair
the delay in adoption of the LTP has impacted here, right? So normally you adopt in June, you strike rates in July, and then you give more time for people to set up automatic payments and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. So that's
our invoices went out 2 weeks later. So
yeah.
It's going to affect the split.
That's all I've got.
Councillor Puller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bevan, are we entitled to interest on the outstanding money from the Ministry for the airport?
It's a good question. I think it would be highly unlikely that they would put interest, given that it's, I could ask, but I don't think they'd be willing to pay interest on it, because from their point of view, it will be our responsibility to provide audited reports or audited accounts, which would trigger the release of the payment.
Right, do we have any other questions on that report? No, I can't.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
You're good. Right. Okay. Well, yes, thank you. I was just going to say, do we have a mover? Thank you, Mayor Luca. Do we have a seconder? Councillor James. Do we have any debate? No, I'll pop the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. That brings us to the conclusion of today's meeting. If we could close it with our karakia from Councillor O'Brien. Sure, thank you. Did we want to look at bringing forward the pre-agenda? Yeah.
We could bring it to 11.
Yeah, is 11 okay, Sharice?
If it's
to you?
possible, otherwise.
11? Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. Let us know after you've done that. Thank you, everyone.